No, 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 no. I think I'm coming to conclusions. Oh my goodness, are you serious? You nothing with that, no. And oh my goodness, it has been so good. There are definitely moments where I was like, why would you go there by yourself? Or why would you confront that person without any like backup or anything? It is Tuesday, what day is it today? It is Tuesday, not May, it's Tuesday, June 13th, and I'm ready to get out of my reading slump. So I've been on summer for almost a month and a half, to be honest, and I have barely read any books. Like, for the month of May, I did read The Friend Zone, but I am still not done this book, and that is so unlike me. So right now, I really do want to take the time to make it through my physical TBR. I have a lot of books still left in my physical TBR that I have yet to read. I think I have anywhere between like maybe like 5 or 10 books, and a lot of them are really, like, if you look at the books that are in my physical TBR, a lot of them were heavily influenced by the books that were trending on TikTok last year. And honestly, I kind of just want to read them. I kind of want to get through them so then I can start finding new and different books to read. So that is what I'm going to be doing this video. I'm going to be spending the next week going through my physical TBR and bringing you guys along with it. So I hope you guys are excited. So my plan is I'm going to finish reading The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. And then after I finish reading this book, I kind of want to switch it up because that one is a romance. And I want to read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I've shown this book before, but I actually haven't read it. So I'm excited to finally start reading this. And then I'm also going to read Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. So these are the 3 books that I'm going to be focusing on right now. If I do finish them a lot sooner throughout the video, then I will definitely be adding more. But my goal is to finish reading these 3. So let's get started. Rightfully so. Ugh. Hi friends, it is the next day. If you hear any background noise, it's because it's raining outside. I've honestly been waiting for the cooler summer days to roll around so I could wear my hoodie. But I finished reading The Friend Zone yesterday, and oh my goodness, this book was an emotional roller coaster to say the least. I will admit there were definitely points in the book while I was reading where I was really interested and then I lost interest, but then my interest was like, it peaked again. So I really appreciate that about the story. But pretty much, it follows along these 2 characters, Kristen and Josh. I really like Kristen. She's a very outspoken, funny woman. However, in the story, she does, like, she's holding this secret from Josh, and she has to get this life-altering surgery, meaning that she won't be able to have her own biological kids. And that's something that we kind of see her have to, like, navigate and come to terms with and kind of accept about herself as well. And then when it comes to Josh, Josh is this really outspoken, not outspoken, but he's this really nice, kind, sweet, loving man. And we can see him and Kristen, like, their relationship just hits off from the very beginning. And we can see that Kristen and Josh are very attracted to each other. They really do like each other. However, Kristen is really putting up that wall just because Josh really does want to have kids, and he really wants to have a lot of biological kids, and Kristen feels as though that's something that she can't give to Josh, and she knows it's something that she can't give to Josh. So that's where, like, the friend zone aspect comes into play, because we see them in the beginning try to be friends, but obviously they're really romantically attracted to each other. So then she's like, we can't be in a relationship. So he's like, okay, then what other alternative is there? They try the friends with benefits situation or scenario, shall I say, and throughout the entirety of the story we kind of see that play out. But yeah, it was very interesting to see the relationship and how everything turned out at the end. It can definitely be a little more of an emotional read. They definitely did touch on some harder topics, which it was interesting seeing it played out in this novel. But overall, I feel like I would give it a 7 out of 10. So yeah, the next book we are going to be reading is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I've heard a lot of good things about this book. I really wanted to change it up just because I had read a romance book, so I feel like murder mystery would be kind of nice. I absolutely love murder mystery books, but I love them when they have a plot twist as well. But pretty much this story, we follow around Pip. She is the main character, and pretty much at the high school that she went to 5 years ago, there was a girl, her name was Andy Bell, and she was murdered by her boyfriend, and pretty much they tried to investigate the case, but they couldn't find any leads, so then they closed the case. 5 years later, Pip decides that she's going to re-examine this case and try to see what actually took place, because she feels as though that there are like missing pieces and missing parts and things aren't clicking. And through her process of trying to investigate, she discovers a lot of dark secrets and things that are key elements to the death of Andy Bell. So very excited to read this, so we are going to get started. It is the next day, and if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I really did not do a lot of reading yesterday. I think max I read like 3 pages in this book, and I kind of got distracted and got carried away with doing some other things. So right now we are currently on page 8, and I really want to work towards finishing this book by Saturday, so I'm going to try to see how much I can get done in terms of reading. I really don't have a lot that I have to do today, so I'm setting aside plenty of time to read this novel. So let's just get into it and let's keep reading. Little update, I'm currently on chapter 2 right now as we speak, and I just realized that this book is in third person, which I'm not really the biggest fan of, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. And also, I decided that I'd make myself a little drink while I am reading. So I decided that I'd make some pink lemonade. I typically don't really like the way that this tastes, but I added some lemons to this, and I also added some ice because I really like it when my drinks, at least when I make them at home, I like it when they have like lots of ice and they're really cold. And this tastes really good, so I'm definitely going to be sipping on this, and I'm going to continue reading this. So far, I mean, I can't really say much about the book. I'm only on chapter 2, and yeah, there's still so much I have yet to know about this, so we're going to keep reading. So yeah. Hi friends, it is the next day and I just finished reading A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and oh my goodness, I finished reading this book at 1 in the morning yesterday and it was really good. Like, you know when you buy a book and then it's in your physical TBR and you kind of like shove it to like the side, like you're not really, like you bought it because you wanted to read it, but because you keep buying more books you kind of forget about it, and then you finally get around to reading it and then it's good. This is one of those books. It was so good. It was a really good murder mystery book. One thing I really did appreciate was the ending kind of caught me off guard. It's not what I was expecting, which I really did appreciate. It was also really interesting seeing Pip go through the process of like, kind of like a process of elimination, like putting people on her like suspect list and crossing them off, but then every single time she would add a new person, there would just be a bunch of like information that she would have to try to like piece together to figure out who the murderer really was. So that was really interesting. There are also other points in the book where Pip would just do things that kind of like made me sit there and think, why would you do this? Like, don't get me wrong, she was smart, but there were definitely moments where I was like, why would you go there by yourself? Or why would you confront that person without any like backup or anything? So it was really suspenseful and interesting to see the entire story play out. I really do like Pip as a character because she was very motivated and ambitious to solve this mystery. And another character that we also do meet in the book, his name is Ravi, and I really did like the Ravi and Pip like duo. Like, those two working together, it was always really entertaining to see the two of them come together to like try to solve this mystery. So overall, I really did enjoy this book. I would probably give it like an 8 out of 10. I definitely do want to read the other 2 books in this series, and I really do like the way that Holly Jackson writes her books. I think another thing I also really appreciated about the novel was the pacing of it. I felt that the novel took off really quickly, and on top of that, I really appreciated how the chapters were very short. Like, it was long when it needed to be long and short when it needed to be short. Like, for instance, within like in part 2 and in part 3, a lot of the chapters were relatively very short unless Pip was actually figuring out information about like key information, or she was discovering new things that would allow her to figure out who the murderer was. And also I noticed in part 3 as well, the chapters got a little longer, obviously when she got to the point where she was actually confronting the person who she suspected to be the murderer. But I loved how they also touched on her obviously investigating the murder, but we also got to see different parts of her life, and we got to see her interact with her family and still be able to have somewhat of a life in the midst of trying to solve this murder mystery. So I very much enjoyed this book. I really like Holly Jackson's writing style, and I also really love the pacing of this book. So there's also that. So the next book that I'm going to be reading is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I heard people talk about this on TikTok, probably maybe like end of 2021, beginning of 2022. A lot of people said that they had liked it. I think people said this one was a sad novel. I don't remember correctly because it's been a while. But pretty much we follow the 2 characters, Kenna Rowan and Ledger Ward. And also there's Kenna's 4-year-old daughter that she's trying to... Okay, so pretty much Kenna ended up being put into prison for something that she did not do. So she was wrongfully imprisoned. Oh no, never mind. 5 years in prison for a tragic mistake. My bad. She actually did something. It was a tragic mistake, so she was put into prison, and then she had a daughter at the time. So her daughter is 4 years old now that she's being like released from prison, and she's pretty much trying to like reunite with her daughter and rekindle the relationship that I guess she was never really able to have, or she tried to have with her daughter. And a lot of people in her daughter's life don't really want Kenna to really form that relationship with her daughter. And then after later on in the novel, we're going to get introduced to a character named Ledger Ward. And pretty much he has a connection to Kenna's daughter. And I guess we're going to see the two of them kind of build this relationship and this connection and see how Kenna's daughter ties into all of this. So, I'm excited to read this. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like when I finish reading a murder mystery book, I feel like all I want to do is just read another murder mystery book. But it's fine though. I'll read a romance novel, so hopefully this one is good. But I don't really have any expectations going into this. I just hope it's a good read and it's fast-paced. So, there's that. So let's start. Hi friends, I just have this on my lap just because I was reading, but I wanted to give you guys an update on how reading Reminders of Him is going. My goodness. Okay, well, let's backtrack a little, because the last book I finished reading completely was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I really enjoyed that book, and then after I finished reading that, which was on Sunday, I ended up watching the final season, the final episode for season 3 for Demon Slayer, and it was really amazing. I really liked it. And they also announced that season 4 was coming out that same day, which was really great and really exciting. But there was a large part of me that really did not want to wait till the next season was going to be animated. So I brought it upon myself to go get my hands on the manga and to continue reading it to figure out what happens throughout the rest of the series. And pretty much I've been reading it electronically on my iPad, and oh my goodness, it has been so good. Like, season 3 finished off on chapter 127 and I'm currently on chapter 181, so I've literally been powering through the Demon Slayer like manga for the past couple of days, and I have enjoyed it so much that I have been putting off Reminders of Him. But then I finally got around to reading Reminders of Him on Wednesday, because today it's currently Sunday. But I finally got around to reading Reminders of Him, and oh my goodness, this is a really good, like, I'm not done the book yet, as you can see, because I just still have this much left. But I'm not gonna lie, this is a good book. Like, I wasn't expecting to like this book as much as I thought I would. Going into it, I really thought that I wouldn't like it. And I had been putting it off so much just because I just didn't think that it would be interesting. But so far, it's really good. I think the main reason why I like it is because the topics that are discussed, they touch on some pretty sensitive topics, I will be honest, and it has a lot to do with like forgiveness and second chances, and it's really interesting seeing the main character Kenna go through the process of learning how to forgive herself for what she had done and trying to receive forgiveness from the people that she's hurt. And it's also really interesting seeing her go through the process of working towards becoming a better person, so she can like reunite with her daughter and rekindle that relationship with her daughter. And it's also interesting seeing the way that Ledger and Kenna interact as well, because I feel like the novel initially starts with them being really attracted to each other, then they kind of have a falling out. Not kind of, they actually do sort of have like a falling out, I guess you could say. But I am really enjoying this novel. I don't want to say too much about it yet, because again, I haven't seen how this novel ends, but I've been tapping some things in this novel which right off the bat I've been really liking. I tend to find that if I'm going to be reading a book and I start tabbing it, I mean, it's typically one that's going to leave an impression on me. But I think another thing that I like about this book is because it really gets me thinking, and it really gets me to like question things. But I guess in this case it's like, oh, like, just like, by question things I mean more so like on the topic of like forgiveness and allowing people to come back into your life. I feel like that's a very big topic that's discussed in this novel. Second chances and all of that. So I've really been enjoying this. So excited to finish this today, and kind of give you guys like an overall review of what I think about this. But yeah. Oh my goodness, are you serious? Why? What happened with that? No. Okay, so I am here to talk to you guys about Reminders of Him. And wow, this was a good read. It really was. I was not expecting to like this novel as much as I did. I think one thing that I really appreciate about this is the fact that I purchased this novel last year, completely forgot I had it. Honestly just bought it just because it was trending on TikTok and a lot of people were talking about it. And then I ended up reading it almost a year later because I kind of completely forgot why it was hyped up so much. going into it with very low expectations and coming out after reading this and realizing that it was such a good read. Honestly, one of my favorite. I would say, apart from the Demon Slayer manga, this is probably my favorite book that I read throughout this entire reading vlog. And I haven't read too many Colleen Hoover books. I think this is the fourth one that I have read. But so far, I would say that because I want to say I like this more than I like It Ends With Us. But I think I would say that I do like this novel more than I like It Ends With Us. I think for me personally, or at least like, I feel like when it comes to Colleen Hoover books, I feel like people either like them or they either hate them, or like you're considered basic for reading them, or just read whatever books you find entertaining or whatever books, you know, inspire you or whatever. But with this novel specifically, and I feel like with Colleen Hoover books specifically, or let me put it this way, with this novel specifically, I really like it just because it's very fast paced. I feel like with Colleen Hoover books, I feel like a reason why a lot of people like reading them, or at least the reason why I liked reading this book specifically, is because I feel like the emotions that you go through, or the emotions that are put in her novels, can be very intense sometimes. And I tend to find that you can almost find yourself empathizing or even sympathizing for the character. And I feel like a lot of the time with her books, or at least I'm going to speak on this novel specifically, I feel like the characters can be really relatable to a sense where you can almost see yourself in the character. And although many of us have probably never gone through the things that Kenna has gone through, the way that she speaks about herself, or the way that she talks about how she's going through a difficult situation, I feel like is something that we could all relate to. And even on the topic of learning how to forgive yourself and to move forward after doing something bad or having hurt someone, again, I feel like it's a topic that we can all relate to. And seeing how it plays out with Kenna is really interesting. Obviously, there's multiple storylines and different ways that this story could have taken place, but this one specifically was very well done. I tend to find that there were points in the book where I was just literally grieving with Kenna, and I was sitting there and I was like, girl, I've never gone through what you've gone through, but girl, I can tell that this hurts. I can tell that you're in pain. I just really wish that there would be someone there to see you, to understand, to acknowledge what you were feeling. And I feel like with some novels, when you read them, you don't really get that. I feel like in this novel, when like Kenna was hurting and when Kenna was in pain, I feel like I was in pain too. I felt like I was being inserted in the story as I was reading it. When I was reading it, I felt like, you know when you read a book and you feel like you're being transported somewhere else? That was what Reminders of Him was. I felt like the minute I opened this book and I started reading it, I was literally just, like, it caught my attention. It captured my attention, and it was really hard to put down. And I feel like that's one of the main reasons why I was able to power through this book and why it was a really good read. Another thing with me is whenever I am reading a book and I tab it, it usually means that it's going to leave, or it usually leaves a pretty big impression on me, because there are specific lines that I want to go back to just because I feel like they really stood out to me. A big thing in this novel that they talk about is forgiveness and second chances. And it was really interesting to see the way that they talked about it and the way that they described it, because obviously like there is a biblical sense and discussion about forgiveness, and I feel like you could kind of see that being emulated in this novel. How quite often they talk about how it's very important to forgive, just because if you continue to hold on to that bitterness or that resentment, it doesn't really allow you to move forward. It can be very burdensome, and it could also be very taxing as well. And seeing Kenna go through the process of working hard to become a better version of herself, and also working on learning how to forgive herself as well, is something that is not only inspiring, but I also feel like it was very refreshing to see. And I was just really happy to see like the transformation that Kenna had went through. I feel like this also speaks a lot to the fact that like we can do bad things in our past, but then our past also doesn't define our future and who we are in the future, which I feel like can be very refreshing, because it can suck though, because sometimes you can do something really bad and that is like the identity that some people give you for your entire life. Like people base who you are off of one bad decision or one bad thing that you did in your life, and sometimes that can be really unfair. Sometimes that can be very unfortunate, especially when you have put that effort into change and you're trying to grow and people don't acknowledge that and people don't see that, and that can be really frustrating. And seeing that played out through Kenna, and being able to sit there in some instances in the novel and point to her and look at her and be like, oh my goodness, like I relate to that, I see you, I understand what you're going through, I feel like made the novel more touching, made it more of like an engaging and refreshing read. And seeing her get to a point in the novel where somebody did acknowledge her, somebody understood what she was going through, it was like, yes, oh my goodness, like I'm so happy that like now that you've acknowledged this pain, like we can move forward and you can become a better version of yourself. And with Ledger too, Ledger was a very good character, he really was. It's interesting to see Kenna and Ledger's relationship in the very beginning. We can see that it takes off with a really big high and then it kind of has a crash, and then after we can kind of see it. And through that crash, we can see how they're trying to work through their emotions, process the way that they feel, and honestly try to see like if this relationship is going to work. There were so many points in this novel where I'm like, oh my goodness, like I really want this to like work, but I just didn't know. Like I just didn't know, like, is this gonna work? Is this not? So that was also satisfying as well. Ledger also does play like a big role in helping Kenna rekindle that relationship with her daughter. The more and more you continue to read the novel. I think one thing I also really appreciate is just the love that Kenna always had for her daughter and how she was willing to do whatever it took to fight to get her daughter back in her life, and I really do appreciate that. So overall, this was such a good read. It really is. I think I said this in the beginning, like I think this is probably by far my favorite Colleen Hoover book that I've read. Once again, it is so refreshing to read a book that you underestimated and to finish it and to be like, dang, this was so good. So this is definitely this book. I think I would give it a 9 out of 10. Okay, maybe like an 8.5 out of 10. An 8.5 out of 10. It was a good read. It was fast paced and I really did enjoy it. So yeah, that is everything for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. And I will see you guys again next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!